The Five Temptations of a CEO by Patrick Lencioni. Picture this. A man stands alone in his corner office, high above San Francisco's twinkling lights. It's just past midnight. Tomorrow marks his one-year anniversary as Chief Executive Officer, the job he's chased his entire career. This should feel like victory, like champagne and quiet satisfaction. Instead, Andrew O'Brien is drowning in dread. The numbers for his first year? Unspectacular at best, as he puts it. But it goes deeper than spreadsheets and quarterly reports. Walking his own hallways makes him uncomfortable. His staff meetings feel like slow torture, and in just a few hours, he faces his board of directors with nothing but excuses and explanations. This is not how it was supposed to go. Welcome to one of the most unexpectedly brilliant leadership books you'll ever encounter. The Five Temptations of a CEO by Patrick Lencioni. Since its release, this deceptively simple fable has quietly revolutionized how leaders think about their jobs, selling millions of copies and spreading by word of mouth like a secret everyone needs to know. Lencioni isn't your typical business guru spouting corporate jargon. He's a storyteller who makes profound truths feel like wisdom you've always known, but somehow forgot to remember. After launching his consulting firm, the Table Group, he noticed something fascinating. Most leaders don't crash and burn because they lack brains or strategy. They fail because they're human. They stumble into 5 almost invisible traps that feel natural, comfortable even, but slowly poison everything they're trying to build. By the time we finish today, you won't just understand these 5 temptations. You'll start seeing them everywhere, in your workplace, your school, your friend groups, maybe even staring back at you from the mirror. Because, here's the thing, this isn't really a book for suits in boardrooms. It's for anyone who's ever had to lead anything, a team project, a club, a family decision, or just their own messy, complicated life. It's your guidebook for dodging the subtle tripwires that take down so many good people with good intentions. So let's join Andrew O'Brien on this strange night, as a mysterious encounter on an empty train is about to turn everything he thinks he knows completely upside down. Andrew stares out his window and notices something odd. The Bay Bridge, normally a glowing river of headlights stretching toward Oakland, sits completely dark. Not a single car. Then it hits him. Those orange construction signs he'd been ignoring for weeks. Bridge closed for repairs. Midnight to 5 a.m. Great. His easy drive home just evaporated. His only option? The BART train, which he hasn't set foot on in almost 10 years. Defeated, he grabs his briefcase and trudges down to the eerily quiet street, his brain still spinning with anxiety about tomorrow's board meeting. The subway terminal feels abandoned. He buys his ticket, sits on a cold bench, and feels profoundly out of place. When the train arrives, it's as empty as the station. He steps inside, and as it plunges into the dark tunnel beneath the bay, exhaustion hits him like a wave. His eyes are just starting to close when a connecting door slides open. An elderly man shuffles in, wearing a gray janitor's uniform with Charlie stitched on the chest. Andrew feels that awkward social pressure. Should he nod? Say hi? Before he can decide, the old man walks right past him without a glance and disappears into the next car. Andrew feels oddly relieved and, strangely enough, a little insulted. He reaches for his briefcase, ready to dive back into work, when the lights flicker, fade, and the train screeches to a halt. Now he's sitting in dim emergency lighting, alone, under the San Francisco Bay. Could this night get any worse? The door opens again. It's Charlie. Come on, he says matter-of-factly. What are you waiting for? Confused, but with literally nothing better to do, Andrew follows him into the next car. Charlie sits with his back to the door, whistling softly. Andrew takes a seat across from him. The heat in this car is the best on the train, Charlie announces cheerfully, as if they're old friends catching up. On cool nights like this, I like coming here to talk. Talk about what? Andrew asks cautiously. Whatever you want to talk about, Charlie replies with an easy smile. After some awkward back and forth, Andrew tries to establish some authority. Actually, I'm the CEO. My name is Andrew. Well, I'm Charlie. Nice to meet you. The old man doesn't even blink at the title. Andrew's about to dismiss this whole bizarre conversation and return to his work when the train loses power completely. Total darkness. A second later, Charlie clicks on a flashlight. Looks like we might be here a while, he says calmly. Why don't you tell me what's bothering you? And right there, in the pitch black, Andrew does something completely inexplicable. He opens up. He tells this stranger, this janitor, that his job is really complicated. Charlie just smiles knowingly. My father always said that running a company wasn't complicated. He used to say that people make it complicated because they're afraid to look at the simple issues. Annoyed now, Andrew shoots back. How did the son of a company president, a railroad, Charlie claims, end up as a janitor on a train? Charlie's response is gentle but firm. Now, Andrew, what in heaven's name does that have to do with your issues? If you don't think I have anything valuable to share, just say so. I'll be glad to move on and find another CEO to talk to. Taken aback by the old man's quiet confidence, Andrew decides to play along. Charlie's expression turns serious. Are you failing, Andrew? Because if you are, then we need to talk. I certainly hope you're not giving in to any of the temptations. That one word, temptations, is about to change everything. Tell me this, Charlie begins. What was the best day of your career? Andrew thinks for a moment. I'd have to say the day I was promoted to CEO. 1 year ago tomorrow. He mentions his promotion to vice president, too, and the first time his salary cracked 6 figures. Charlie slowly shakes his head, disappointment flickering across his weathered face. I think you've given in to temptation number 1, and it's the toughest one to fix. He leans forward. It seems to me that you may be more interested in protecting your career status than you are in making sure your company achieves results. This is the first temptation, choosing status over results. Here's the thing about climbing the ladder. For many leaders, reaching the top becomes the entire point. The title, the corner office, the recognition, that's the prize. Once they get there, their focus shifts from achieving great things for the company to protecting the great thing they achieved for themselves. Their real goal was always personal gain, and now that they've arrived, they spend their energy preserving their position instead of pushing for results. Charlie explains it beautifully. A great leader wouldn't say their best day was getting the job. A great coach would say it was winning the championship. A great president would say it was passing legislation that changed lives. The achievement isn't the position, it's what you do with it. When a leader cares more about their own ego and status, every single decision gets filtered through, how will this make me look? Instead of, how will this help us win? The entire organization suffers because the person steering the ship has made their own comfort more important than reaching the destination. Andrew feels the truth cutting deep, but he's not ready to surrender completely. He thinks he does focus on results. After all, he protests, last week I fired my head of marketing. I'm not afraid to take action. This opens the door to Charlie's second temptation. Why did you fire him? Charlie asks about Terry, the marketing executive. Andrew rattles off the reasons. Terry came unprepared to meetings. His ideas felt stale. He wasn't delivering what the sales team needed. And what did you do about it along the way? Charlie probes. Andrew admits the uncomfortable truth. He liked Terry personally. They were peers, almost friends. He'd drop hints that things weren't working out, but he never sat Terry down for the hard conversation. He never said directly, your job is in jeopardy if these specific things don't improve. Why not? Because it would have been uncomfortable, awkward, painful. He didn't want Terry to dislike him. He didn't want to lose him as a confidant. So you were afraid to be unpopular, Charlie concludes simply. And that's the second temptation, choosing popularity over accountability. A leader's direct reports aren't supposed to be their support group. They're the key people responsible for delivering results. But leadership is lonely. and it's incredibly natural to want the people you spend the most time with to like you. The temptation whispers, avoid the discomfort of holding people accountable because you value your relationship with them more than their responsibility to the company. What happens when you give in? Mediocrity spreads like a virus. People get away with underperforming. The high achievers on your team watch this happen and think, why should I bust my back when there are zero consequences for doing half the work? And here's the cruel irony. The leader who avoids accountability to preserve a relationship usually destroys it anyway. Just like Andrew, they let the problem fester until it becomes unbearable. Then they fire the person, the ultimate relationship destroyer. Real leadership isn't about being liked. It's about earning respect by caring enough to tell people the truth, even when your voice shakes and your palms sweat. Andrew feels the sting of recognition, but he has a defense ready. How could I hold Terry accountable for specific marketing goals, he challenges. My background is in engineering, he's the expert. I wouldn't have known for sure what the right goals were. I would have been guessing. Charlie practically lights up. Ah, he says. That brings us to temptation number 3. The third temptation is choosing certainty over clarity. Many leaders, especially the smart, analytical types, carry a deep fear of being wrong. They crave data, information, proof, before making any decision. They want 100% certainty. But here's the problem. In the real world, you never have all the information. The world moves too fast, and the fog never completely clears. Because they're terrified of making a call and looking foolish, these leaders leave everything vague. They don't set clear goals or define clear priorities. They give hazy direction and hope their talented team somehow figures it out. But here's the question that exposes everything. How can you possibly hold someone accountable for hitting a target if you never clearly defined what the target was in the first place? You can't. A leader's job isn't to be right all the time. It's to provide clarity, to point in a direction and say with confidence, we're going there. This is what matters most right now. Even if that direction later proves slightly off, a clear path beats no path every single time. The team can move forward, learn from what happens, and adjust course. Without clarity, the entire organization becomes paralyzed, waiting for a leader who's waiting for a guarantee that will never ever come. Great leaders risk being wrong to create clarity. The cost of being wrong? A little bit of bruised pride. The cost of being unclear? Complete paralysis. As Andrew sits absorbing this uncomfortable truth, they're suddenly interrupted. A tall man in a sharp suit appears at the end of the car, looking for Charlie. Turns out, Charlie's been holding up a conversation in another car. Confused but curious, Andrew follows Charlie and the tall man through 7 train cars until they reach one occupied by 2 other men, one bald, one wearing a stylish pinstripe suit. They all seem to know Charlie. They all know about the temptations. Andrew realizes with a start, they're all leaders, just like him, having their own midnight conversations. The tall man admits he struggles with the 4th temptation. So what happens when a leader finally makes a clear decision, even with imperfect information? They might still make a bad call. Why? Because they haven't tapped into the collective wisdom of their entire team. And that happens when they fall for the 4th temptation, choosing harmony over productive conflict. Most of us were raised to believe that agreement is good and disagreement is bad. We want meetings to feel pleasant and tension-free. But here's what Lencioni understands. Great decisions aren't born from harmony. They're forged in the fire of constructive debate. Productive ideological conflict isn't about personal attacks or drama. It's about passionate, unfiltered debate around ideas and issues. It happens when team members feel safe enough to challenge each other, to disagree, to push back hard, to mine for the absolute best possible answer. A leader who craves harmony will shut this debate down too quickly. They'll rush to make peace, find a safe compromise, and move on, all to avoid the discomfort of real conflict. When this happens, 2 terrible things occur. First, the decision itself becomes weaker, because not all perspectives and ideas made it onto the table. Second, team members don't truly buy in. They might nod politely in the meeting, but they walk out thinking, I never got to say what I really believe. I don't actually agree with this. They won't fully commit to a decision they never truly debated. A little healthy conflict in a meeting? That's a sign of progress, of engagement, of people who care. A meeting that's too quiet? That's a warning sign that the most important issues are being carefully avoided. Andrew starts seeing how these temptations connect like links in a chain. The desire for status leads to ignoring results. The desire for popularity prevents accountability. The desire for certainty prevents clarity. The desire for harmony prevents the conflict needed to achieve real clarity. But there's one final piece, the root of everything. The train begins slowing down. The four men stand to leave, gathering their things. Andrew panics. You can't just stop there. What's the fifth temptation? Charlie simply says, it's time for us to go. Desperate now, Andrew blocks the door, practically pleading with Charlie to tell him the final piece of the puzzle. Charlie sighs, come with me. Andrew leaps from the train just as the doors hiss shut, leaving his briefcase behind. He whips around to find the platform completely empty. Charlie's vanished. He runs up the escalator, bursts onto the street, sees no one. Then, a voice from behind, over here. Charlie sits on a bus stop bench, bathed in streetlight. Why are you so desperate? He asks gently. And there, on that empty street in the dead of night, Andrew finally breaks wide open. For the first time in my career, he confesses, I think I'm drowning, and I feel like I'm pulling people down with me just to keep my head above water. Charlie pats his back with genuine kindness. Let me tell you about temptation number 5. He explains that his father, the railroad president, used to say he trusted his people with his career. Then he asks Andrew point blank, can you say that? Andrew shakes his head. Not even close. Then Charlie asks the crucial question that cuts straight to the heart. I was wondering if they could trust you with their careers. The fifth temptation is choosing invulnerability over trust. Trust is the foundation of absolutely everything. Without it, nothing else works. Why are leaders afraid of conflict? Because they don't trust their team members enough to engage in passionate debate without it becoming personal. And why don't their team members engage? Because they don't trust the leader. A leader who needs to appear invulnerable, who never admits mistakes, never shows weakness, never asks for help, creates an environment where nobody else feels safe to be vulnerable either. If the leader pretends to have all the answers, why would anyone challenge their ideas? They won't. They'll play it safe. They won't offer up a crazy idea that might be brilliant. They won't admit when they're confused. They won't take meaningful risks. The only way to build trust is for the leader to go first. They have to be willing to be vulnerable. They have to openly admit their weaknesses and mistakes. They have to trust their team with their reputation and their ego, knowing they might get burned. It's only when the leader makes themselves vulnerable that the rest of the team feels safe enough to do the same. And it's only when everyone feels safe that they can engage in the productive conflict needed to make clear decisions, hold one another accountable, and achieve the results that ultimately define success. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the ultimate sign of strength and confidence in a leader. As Charlie finishes, a bus pulls up with a wheeze of air brakes. How do I get comfortable being vulnerable? Andrew asks, one last desperate question. You'll have to figure that one out for yourself, Charlie says with a final, knowing smile, and steps onto the bus. Andrew watches it disappear into the night. Then, another bus's blaring horn startles him. He screams and wakes up. He's on the BART train, pulling into his station. Only 20 minutes have passed. It was all a dream. He grabs his briefcase, still there, thank God, and steps off the train. The weight of tomorrow's board meeting feels just a little bit lighter. The next day, Andrew arrives late to the meeting. A new board member is there, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Catherine Peterson. The meeting starts, and at first, it unfolds exactly as Andrew had feared and hoped. The chairman glosses over the disappointing results and moves quickly to other topics. Andrew handles himself well, projects confidence, and for a brief moment thinks he might escape unscathed. But as the meeting's about to end, Catherine raises her hand. "I have a few questions," she says calmly. And then, methodically and relentlessly, she dismantles the entire facade. She points out the lack of urgency, the passive plans, the hollow excuses. She challenges Andrew directly about his hiring mistakes and his absence of any real turnaround strategy. The room freezes. Other executives jump to Andrew's defense, calling her unfair and harsh. The tension becomes almost unbearable. And in that moment, Andrew faces a choice. He can hide behind his excuses, protect his status, preserve harmony, or he can face the brutal truth. He pushes his chair away from the table and stands up. "No," he says, looking directly at Catherine. "We're not doing better than you thought. We've made too many mistakes. I let it go on." For the next 10 minutes, Andrew gives the speech of his life. He talks about results, accountability, clarity, and conflict. He takes full, unflinching responsibility. He tells the board that if things don't dramatically improve, he shouldn't be in this job. He makes himself completely vulnerable. After the meeting, as board members file out, Andrew notices a maintenance man hanging old photos in the hallway. They show the company's past CEOs. He steps closer. The first few are his predecessors, but then he sees them: the stylish man, the bald man, the tall man, and finally a kind-looking, elderly man with white hair and a wrinkled smile. The nameplate reads, Charles Pierce. Charlie. The maintenance man, wearing the same gray shirt as the Charlie from his dream, turns a corner and vanishes. Andrew calls after him, but he's gone. The story flashes forward 3 years. The company is absolutely thriving. The board applauds enthusiastically. But the CEO receiving the applause isn't Andrew. A new man sits in that chair. He graciously credits his team and the board, then adds, "And ironically, I received some pretty good advice from an unlikely person." "Who was that?" the chairman asks curiously. "Andrew O'Brien," the new CEO replies. "Where did you see him?" Catherine asks, intrigued. The CEO smiles. "That's the funny thing. I ran into him one night on a BART train." What a powerfully crafted story. What I absolutely love about Patrick Lencioni's work is how he takes these intimidating, complex leadership concepts and distills them down to their simple, profoundly human core. When you really examine these 5 temptations, you realize they're not just lurking in corner offices of Fortune 500 companies. They're everywhere. They're in all of us. Think about it for a second. Choosing status over results? That's caring more about being team captain, class president, or honor roll student than about what the team actually accomplishes, or what you actually learn. It's focusing on the appearance of success instead of the substance of it. Choosing popularity over accountability? We face this one constantly. It's the hesitation to tell a friend they're making a terrible mistake because you don't want them mad at you. It's watching someone slack off on a group project while everyone else works harder to compensate, but nobody wants to create awkwardness by calling it out. Choosing certainty over clarity? This is the paralysis of overthinking. It's refusing to pick a direction for a project, or even your own life, because you're terrified of choosing the wrong path, so you end up frozen, choosing no path at all. Choosing harmony over productive conflict? This is the trap of groupthink. It's a room full of people where everyone secretly disagrees with an idea, but no one speaks up because they don't want to rock the boat. So a bad idea moves forward simply because everyone was too polite to challenge it. And finally, choosing invulnerability over trust. To me, this is the most profound lesson of all. It's the fear of letting people see our imperfections, of admitting we don't know something, of asking for help. We build these walls around ourselves to appear strong, but in doing so we prevent any real connection from forming. Trust, as Lencioni teaches us, can only be built on a foundation of vulnerability. The true genius of this book is that it gives us language for these very human struggles. It reminds us that leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware of our own temptations and having the courage to fight against them, day after day. It's about choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Choosing results, accountability, clarity, conflict, and trust. So here's a simple action you can take. The next time you find yourself in any leadership position, no matter how small, ask yourself one question from this book. Am I willing to be vulnerable? Are you willing to be the first to admit you don't have all the answers? Are you willing to ask your team for their honest feedback, even if it stings? Because if you can do that, you create a space where trust can grow, and where there is trust, anything becomes possible. That was a summary of The 5 Temptations of a CEO by Patrick Lencioni. We've journeyed through the core ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a photograph of a magnificent landscape. You can see the outline, appreciate the composition, but you can't feel the breeze on your face or smell the air. The real magic of this fable lives in the experience of reading it yourself, of feeling Andrew's struggle and Charlie's wisdom in the quiet moments between the pages. This summary is your map, helping you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If anything we've talked about has sparked something in you, curiosity, recognition, maybe even a little discomfort, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning principles. It's an experience that can fundamentally shift how you see your role as a leader, and more importantly, as a human being. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another potentially life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.